The following program is presented by Blue Water Healthy Living. Produced by GBS Media. Sponsored by the Grant Smith Health Insurance Agency.
Hey, I'm Dave King, and this is Blue Water Healthy Living, and we're very excited today to have a special guest, and that guest is constitutional attorney Katherine Henry. She's become rather famous rather quickly, and she had everything to do, it seems, with the Michigan Supreme Court striking down some of the executive orders that have to do with COVID. Katherine, welcome to Blue Water Healthy Living.
Thank you.
If you would be so kind, and also I want to mention that you are the head of the Restore Freedom Initiative. This is an initiative that you have started yourself. Anything you'd like to say about that?
So I got involved with all these things back in the first week of April when I saw what our governor was doing. Saw that our legislature was trying to vote to extend the state of emergency the first time around, and I was very concerned about all of our constitutionally protected liberties that were being infringed upon. So when I started down the road of trying to get things stopped just with the legislature, and I realized they weren't listening, and they too forgot what the parameters of the Constitution say about their role, I realized that we needed to handle things yet another way. I ended up in May drafting this constitutional amendment petition, which, unlike the 1945 repeal, actually basically takes away the 1945 law and the 1976 law and the provisions of the Public Health Code that are getting more attention these days anyway. And all of those other elements of the law where our rights are trampled upon and the constitutional foundations are forgotten by our government officials. It also does things like it requires if a government official intentionally violates the Constitution, the first time around, that's a misdemeanor. The second time around, for them intentionally violating the Constitution, it's now a felony, and they're immediately removed from office and prohibited from ever holding any state or local government office ever again. The voters shouldn't have to collect just shy of 1.2 million signatures to remove a government official from office when they have been violating our state constitution. So, especially when they have a duty and an oath to uphold it. So this constitutional amendment, it doesn't change the structure or foundation of government. It simply strips away all the extra garbage, if you will, that's been added to our processes and procedures the last several decades. And it strengthens our rights, and it clarifies the restrictions that are already placed on our government. So those are the big key points of what this constitutional amendment petition does. And we're still in the process of getting the 425,059 signatures that are needed in order to get this on the November 2022 ballot. And we have to have all those signatures turned in within a 180-day time window, which ends this Thanksgiving.
How many signatures do you have so far?
I don't know. Our last count, we had a count that was put out the first week of July, around 100,000. And we have, a couple thousand volunteers all across our state. All I know is we don't have enough. We don't have near enough right now. We have to really ramp things up. But I believe that we can do it because now is the time where people are asking for ways that we can help empower them and give them courage and hope to impact a change that would be long lasting, so we don't have a governor or legislature doing these things any further.
Katherine, there's a confusion out there now. What stands and what doesn't?
So on Friday, last Friday, our Michigan Supreme Court issued opinions that, in fact, there were essentially two main pieces to that. Number one, there was the Emergency Management Act. The court focused on the issue of whether whether the governor, by continuing to issue these orders after April 30th, whether she was violating the 1976 Emergency Management Act. They said in a 7-0 decision, meaning not partisan in the slightest, yes, In fact, she was violating the 1976 state law. They then turned to the Emergency Powers of Governor Act of 1945, and they found that that statute actually was violating our state constitution. So it doesn't really matter if she was following the language of that statute, because the statute itself violates our state constitution. So she can't use it as a source of authority. So what does that mean? All of her emergency powers rest upon either one of those two statutes to be able to keep issuing these emergency power executive orders. So now that the court has said that at least since May 1st, all of those orders lost any kind of legal or constitutional authority, every single one of the orders that were built on those emergency powers are gone. So that means the orders requiring us to wear masks, prohibiting us from going to visit our loved ones in nursing homes or juvenile care facilities, the ones that limit our ability to open our businesses or require us to have only certain capacity, 25 or 50% capacity within our businesses. All of the prohibiting gatherings for any purpose, all of those types of things, those are ones that were done through these executive orders, but none of those executive orders are currently standing. Now, our governor did go on the news, I think it was within minutes of that court decision coming out, saying that her orders will stay in effect and still be the law for at least 21 more days. That's not a thing. The day and time that those opinions were published on Friday, October 2nd, is the time that those go into effect. So none of those orders are allowed to stand. And why should they be allowed to? If the court clearly says they violate state law and violate the Constitution, then there's no way that she should be able to just continue out of convenience to use them to control us and trample upon our God-given liberties.
So if she's continuing these orders for 21 days, you find that that's unconstitutional under the Michigan Constitution. Is that correct?
I didn't find that. The court said that.
The courts did, yes.
Yes. And
you argued that would...
I did. Yes, I argued that in the Supreme Court.
So, Katherine, does that mean for me and for our audience out there that I really don't have to wear a mask if I don't want to wear a mask? If I go into a restaurant or shopping, do my shopping or whatever, what does that mean for me?
So let me answer that, but first tell you the other two things that she did so I can answer that all in connection. So on Monday of this week, she actually filed a motion with the Michigan Supreme Court asking the court to delay the effect of their decision until the end of this month. Now, again, that's not a thing, because if you're unconstitutional in your actions as a government official, you don't get a free pass or a pause button on your constitutional duties to just do whatever you want to because that's the more convenient thing for you or better for people in your particular opinion. So I'm actually working on, hopefully as soon as we're done with this interview, I'm going to be able to wrap up the response to that motion that I've been working on all week. And the Attorney General's response to it just came in today. And then the plaintiff in that case and the legislature, they both filed responses this week as well. So at any rate, the other thing she did was she's done these press conferences telling us that she has all these other administrative powers, right, that she's going to utilize. And so we've seen like Oakland County, for example, has been using MCL 333.2453. And then I think it was the day after that, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services issued a statewide emergency order under MCL 333.2253. Those two things are utilizing the public health code provisions that essentially allow one of these one of these Department of Health and Human Services officials to create an order that does one of three things. It can either enforce current health code law, which these orders do not do because they're telling us to wear masks and not to gather, which there's no state law that says that. They can ensure the continuation of essential public health services. Again, they could provide a mask, they could provide education on COVID-19, but they cannot require anything of us because that's not an essential public health service. And the third thing they could do is to prohibit the gathering of people for any purpose. But I'm pretty sure everyone watching this probably understands that we have that First Amendment right under our United States Constitution, as well as that right in our Article 1 of our state constitution that allow us to peaceably assemble undiminished. We have that right no matter what. So the only thing that the statutes that they're using actually allow them to do in these orders is something that's not even constitutional in the first place. So with that being said, whether we're looking at these new orders that are coming out from local government officials, whether we're looking at the statewide public health orders through the Department of Health and Human Services, or the original orders that were issued by the governor, the answer is this to your question. If you don't want to wear a mask, you don't have to wear a mask. If you want to burn those masks, you can do that. It is not legally the thing in Michigan that you have to wear these masks or that you cannot gather. You can do all of those things. You can exercise every single one of your God-given liberties that is protected by our Constitution as though this whole thing never happened.
Catherine, I have a statement here from the Department of Justice. And it's a statement from an Assistant Attorney General and the Michigan U.S. Attorneys regarding the Michigan Supreme Court ruling, which struck down Governor Whitmer's pandemic-related orders. And I can tell you, you've probably read this, but I can tell you and our audience that the people who comprise this memorandum are completely in agreement with the limitations of the executive in this regard, and that there is a clear violation of the Michigan Constitution. Would you agree with that?
I actually hadn't seen that statement, so I'd be interested if you guys wanted to send it to me. But yeah, I agree. I've been saying this since April that our governor was exceeding what's allowed to her under the state constitution. And what's interesting to note is that it's not that our court said that the Emergency Management Act of 1976 is constitutional. What they actually came out and said was because they were recognizing that our governor violated the state statute by issuing these orders, that they no longer felt the need to answer the question about if that statute itself violated our state constitution. Whereas I would argue it absolutely does, that both of these statutes, in fact, now the two new ones as well, the part of the Public Health Code, all of these actually violate our state and federal constitutions.
Well, this memorandum, and we'll be happy to send it to you, and we will, comes from the United States Department of Justice, Office of Public Affairs, and it's issued out of the Civil Rights Division, which I think is also interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be happy to send it to you. All right, so I don't have to wear a mask, which is a relief. I don't want to wear a mask. How about if I own a business, do I have to abide by any of these executive orders? Can I put something up on my door which requires someone to wear a mask before they enter? I mean, what are those responsibilities?
So that's kind of it sounds like the same question, but it's two totally different questions. So the first one is, do you have to abide by these orders? The answer is no. None of these orders are constitutional, and they're not even legal. And the court was very clear about the first half of that. The second half with these new public health code uses, it's not that the court said those are okay. It's that question was not before the court at this point. So I am raising those issues with the court. I'm hoping that they're going to come out and give a clear answer to people so that people understand what I've been saying all along, which is that none of these orders are okay under the Constitution. And even in this case, these new orders violate our own state statutes. So no, you don't have to abide by them. They're not the law. No matter what, they're not the law. In fact, our law is very clear in what the law is. The court was very clear in saying that the legislature is the only one that's allowed to make laws. And our law, we have a law on the books, MCL 8.8, that tells us what a law is. And the only executive orders that count as laws are the ones that merely reorganize the executive branch and are presented to the legislature under Article 5, Section 2 of our state constitution. None of these orders that control the people in any way are deemed laws. So the other side of that question is, if you own a business, are you allowed to put up a sign that says you can't enter or you won't be served without wearing a mask? No, the answer is no. Let's look at the simplest of these reasons, right? Number one is, what about those with disabilities? Are you allowed to say that you can't come in the store with a wheelchair because the wheelchair might contain COVID-19 spores on the tires or the wheels? No, you're not allowed to do that. Most of these provisions of all the social distancing and the masks and everything, although our director of Department of Health and Human Services and our governor claim that it's settled science, it is far from settled. In fact, just a couple days ago, this week, I want to say it was on Sunday, a group based out of, I think, the East Coast, some professors at Harvard and Yale and some of those institutions, they created a petition for medical professionals and medical health experts to step up and fight against the use of these shutdown orders and things like that, because they and now I believe it has 14,000 signatures of medical providers and other health experts who are saying, no, stop. All that they've been doing is wrong, and it's not helping our country to be able to heal more quickly or to be able to avoid the devastating effects of COVID-19 that sometimes happen to people. Enough is enough. So I think it's important to realize, number one, that it's not settled science or settled medicine. There is huge dispute over what is appropriate for COVID-19. But number two, we have rights. We have rights that people cannot discriminate against us, say, for example, for our religious freedoms or for our, our skin color or whether we're male or female. So if you, I strongly believe as a Christian that we are not allowed to simply walk around covering up our face. We are supposed to be out there in fellowship with others and communicating with others and having and growing those relationships with others. And we are required then to not hide behind something or have any of these symbols that can be termed as, the mark of the beast. So we are supposed to be experiencing that community with others without those masks on. So there's that religious piece to it, religious freedom piece, but just being able to breathe fresh air, that's one of our unenumerated rights, one of those rights that God gave us that we preserved by way of Article 1, Section 23 of our state constitution or the 9th Amendment to our U.S. Constitution. We are not simply limited to having those kinds of basic rights that are simply listed in those constitutions. God gave us far more rights than that, and we don't have to enumerate them or even have a court spell them out in order for us to exercise those. So I would strongly urge any business who's going to require anybody to do anything, perhaps maybe you need to not have your business open if you're that afraid of COVID-19, but you cannot infringe upon the rights of others out of fear.
Catherine, I've got to bring this up, and if you don't want to respond to it, I completely understand. But I just found that yesterday, I think it was yesterday, the governor had a news conference and announced that she was the subject of a kidnap plot regarding all of this. And I just found that the timing of that announcement was odd. I don't know if you want to comment about that or.
Oh, I certainly can. I have direct information about this. So what I can tell you is I have not spoken with each and every one of the, defendants, if you will, in this case. My understanding is that there are now 13 individuals that have been arrested. I can tell you this, though. There have been many patriot organizations, including militia, that have had the appropriate conversation about how our governor is violating our state laws, how she's violating our Constitution, how others, in fact, like our Attorney General and others in government have been violating our Constitution. And quite frankly, how it meets the definition of treason, how it meets the definition of, if you look at one of our federal crimes, 18 USC Section 241, where two or more people conspire to stop someone from exercising their constitutionally protected freedoms, that's a 10-year prison sentence on a felony. And if someone has died because of that, they're denied medical care, or a positive patient was put into a nursing home and then your loved one died because as a result of that, then it can actually be punishable by death. And again, that's not something that the militia made up or that this group is responsible for. those are provisions of federal law that are already on the books, and our Constitution, obviously we have a state and federal Constitution that she's been violating as well. So these individuals have been talking about how to bring her to justice, how to get her properly arrested and tried for the crimes that she's been doing. And so the fact that they are twisting and turning that and making it sound like they're terrorists who are going to kidnap her and execute her is not at all what was happening. They were simply trying to figure out ways to get the federal government and others involved so that we can utilize the legal provisions that are on the books in our Constitution and in our statutes. So I could tell you firsthand, with that being said, I can also tell you that I won't speak for all law enforcement that was involved in this, but I do know of 2 individuals that were arrested that night, 2 nights ago now, that the law enforcement officials involved, the Michigan State Police and members of the FBI, violated, at the very least, the Fourth Amendment rights to not only the 2 men that were arrested, but their wives and their children and their dad. So when those family members are held hostage, when they are handcuffed, when they are not told what the charges are, when they're not shown a warrant, and their homes are ransacked, glass doors literally blown through, when children who are, they're being kept separate from their parents and not allowed to have their parents present when they're being questioned while being handcuffed and frisked by adults in law enforcement, we have real problems. So I would really encourage every single person watching or listening right now to not listen to what's in the media, because you can't believe everything you see and you hear. And although there might actually be some bad actors, so to speak, in this whole scenario who are actually plotting to do something wrong, I could speak for at least a few of them that I've met them personally. And they, in fact, have come out to protect me at various events and are some of the most kind, peaceful loving, Constitution loving Americans that I have ever met.
Sounds like you might become involved in that case as well. If I were a defendant, I'd sure reach out to you to see if
they did. They did, yes.
We're just honored to have you here, Katherine, and I want to thank you and our audience for tuning in and you simplifying some of these developments now. And I want to assure you that we'll be watching for more. It sounds like you're going to be involved in some more things. Katherine, how can people get in contact with you?
They can get in contact with me through our website, restorefreedomkh.com. That's restorefreedom, K as in Catherine, H as in Henry.com. You can find information on all the pleadings and court filings I've been doing with the Michigan Supreme Court and Court of Appeals on there. But you can also find information on the petition and how to get involved and help us even to get 10 signatures towards our goal of that 425,000.
Constitutional Attorney Katherine Henry, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you.
I'm Dave King.
This program was presented by Blue Water Healthy Living. Produced by GBS Media. Sponsored by the Grant Smith Health Insurance Agency.